Ever felt like your life is just sitting in neutral? You want change, you want clarity, and you want momentum. You want something to shift. And yet, no matter how much you think about it, no matter how much you plan, no matter how much you want it, you still feel stuck. And maybe you've said things like, I don't know what I need to do. I just can't seem to do it. I keep starting and stopping. I feel like something is holding me back. If you've ever felt that way, today's video is for you. Because what if the problem isn't a lack of motivation? What if the problem isn't a lack of discipline? What if the reason you can't move forward is something much deeper? For those of you I haven't met yet, my name is Tina Brigitini. Welcome to my channel. Go ahead and like and subscribe if this resonates with you. One of the biggest misunderstandings about feeling stuck is the belief that people aren't trying hard enough. But most people I meet who feel stuck, they're exhausted from trying. They've read the books, they've listened to the podcast, they've made the plans, set the goals, thought about it endlessly. The issue isn't effort. The issue is often that different parts of the system want different things. One part wants to move forward. Another part isn't ready to let go. And until those two parts are understood, progress can feel frustratingly slow. So when people think about moving forward, they often imagine it's a decision. You decide, you act, you change. And sometimes life works that way, but often it doesn't because human beings are much more complex than that. There's part of you that may want a new opportunity, and yet there's another part of you that is holding fear around what comes with it. See, part of you may want a new relationship, but part of you may fear being hurt again. Part of you may fear uncertainty. And this creates an internal tug of war. And when that happens, people often interpret the experience as failure. I don't think it's failure. I think it's information. What if being stuck isn't actually the absence of movement? What if it's the presence of competing priorities? Think about that for a moment. One part wants growth, another part wants familiarity. One part wants possibility, another part wants predictability. And because both parts have valid concerns, neither fully wins. The result is what many people describe as feeling stuck. Now, one of the most powerful forces in human behavior is familiarity. We often assume people move towards happiness, but many times people move toward what is familiar, even when familiar is uncomfortable, even when familiar is limiting, even when familiar is painful. Why? Because familiar is known, and what is known often feels safer than what is unknown. And this is why people sometimes remain in the situations they've outgrown, not because they enjoy them, because the system understands them. Another reason people struggle to move forward is that change often requires leaving behind an identity. And identities are powerful. Perhaps you've spent years being the caregiver, the responsible one, the peacemaker, the achiever, the helper, the strong one, the person that everyone depends on. And now life is asking something different of you. But letting go of an identity can feel surprisingly uncomfortable because you're not just changing behavior, you're changing who you believe yourself to be. One thing I've observed throughout the years working with people is that we often become organized around stories. Stories about who we are, stories about what is possible, stories about our worth, stories about our limitations, stories about what life should look like. These stories quietly influence our decisions, and many of them were created years ago. sometimes decades ago. The challenge is that life changes, people change, circumstances change, but the story often remains the same. And eventually, we find ourselves trying to create a new future while still operating from an old story. See, the nervous system plays a role here as well. Change creates uncertainty, and uncertainty requires adaptation. Even positive change can feel stressful. A new opportunity, a healthier relationship, a new chapter, a new identity. All of these things require the system to adjust. And this is why people sometimes feel anxious, even when moving towards something that they genuinely want. The anxiety doesn't necessarily mean that the choice is wrong. It may simply mean that the system is encountering something unfamiliar. So most people ask, how do I move forward? But I think the more useful question is, what part of me is afraid to? That question changes everything because now you're no longer fighting yourself. You're becoming curious about yourself and you're beginning to understand the hesitation rather than judge it. And understanding creates movement. Many people try to force themselves forward, force clarity, force motivation, force action. But lasting change rarely happens through force. More often, it happens through readiness. The moment the system begins recognizing that the future is safer than the past, it's the moment the familiar loses its grip, the moment the old identity no longer feels necessary, the moment the new possibility becomes more compelling than the old story. That's when movement begins naturally. And if you're feeling stuck right now, I want to offer you a different perspective because you're not broken. Perhaps you're not lacking motivation. Perhaps part of your system is still trying to understand how to move forward safely. And that's a very different experience because now the goal isn't about forcing change. The goal is understanding what needs reassurance, what needs support, what needs healing, what needs to be seen. And if there's one thing that I hope you take away from today's video is this: feeling stuck doesn't always mean that you're standing still. Sometimes there are important things happening in the background. Sometimes old identities are dissolving. Sometimes old stories are losing their power. Sometimes the system is preparing for a change that it cannot fully see yet. So be patient with the process, stay curious, and trust what you're learning about yourself because moving forward isn't always about taking a giant leap. Sometimes it's about understanding what's been holding you in place. And once you understand that, the path forward often becomes much clearer. And in our next video, we're going to explore one of the most important questions in this entire series. What if the patterns you've been struggling with aren't signs that something is wrong with you, but evidence of how intelligently you've adapted to life? Go ahead and like and subscribe if this resonates with you. Many blessings.